Chapter 1: The Silent Symphony. The hum of the centrifuge was Aris Thorne's lullaby. He hadn't slept properly in weeks, fueled by lukewarm coffee and the intoxicating thrill of discovery. His lab, a chaotic symphony of bubbling beakers, whirring machinery, and the pungent scent of genetically engineered algae, was his sanctuary. Tonight, though, the usual controlled chaos felt different. A tremor of anticipation, sharp and electric, thrummed beneath his skin. He stared at the monitor, the complex bioluminescent patterns shifting like a silent, celestial dance. This wasn't supposed to happen. The longevity study, funded by a grudging grant from Genesis Corp, was designed to pinpoint genetic markers related to human lifespan. Instead, it had unveiled something far more profound: a glitch, a deviation in the expected results, a shimmering anomaly nestled within the human genome itself. He zoomed in on the sequence, the cryptic code unfolding before him like a hidden message. It wasn't merely slowing down aging, it was actively reversing cellular degradation. He dubbed it the Chimera sequence, a playful nod to its unexpected and almost mythical properties. A low growl rumbled from the algae bioreactor. Aris glanced at the readouts, a frown creasing his brow. The algae, modified for biofuel production, were displaying an accelerated growth rate, unprecedented. He ran a series of cross-referencing tests, his fingers flying across the keyboard. The connection solidified. The Chimera sequence was affecting more than just human cells, it held the potential to dramatically alter the metabolic processes of various organisms. His heart pounded a frantic rhythm against his ribs. This wasn't just a scientific breakthrough, it was a potential revolution. A revolution Genesis Corp wouldn't want to see. A sudden ping from his encrypted terminal jolted him. An anonymous message, delivered through a secure channel he'd only used for highly sensitive communications, displayed a single chilling sentence: "They know." A wave of cold dread washed over Aris. He didn't need to decipher the meaning, he knew exactly who they were. Genesis Corp, the behemoth that controlled New Eden's resources, its technology, and ultimately, its future. The implication was clear: his discovery, meant to unlock humanity's potential, had put a massive target on his back. Aris felt a tremor of fear, but it was quickly swallowed by a surge of fierce determination. He wasn't going to let a soulless corporation steal the chance to unravel the mysteries of human life, to transcend the limitations of mortality. This wasn't just about science anymore, it was about freedom. He quickly secured the data, encrypting it several layers deep, while his mind raced, planning his next move. The silent symphony of his lab had abruptly transformed into a deafening roar of impending conflict. The game, he knew, was on. Chapter 2: Shadow of the Serpent. The polished mahogany table gleamed under the subdued lighting of the Genesis Corp executive suite. Aris sat across from Theron Vance, CEO of Genesis Corp, a man whose smile held the chilling chill of a glacier. Vance exuded power, an aura amplified by the sterile elegance of his surroundings. The air itself felt thick with unspoken threats. "Dr. Thorne," Vance began, his voice a smooth baritone, a stark contrast to the predatory glint in his eyes. "Your unusual findings in the longevity study have certainly piqued our interest." Aris remained outwardly calm, his internal turmoil masked by a carefully crafted facade of polite indifference. "The results were unexpected, yes. The Chimera sequence appears to offer possibilities." He left the word deliberately vague, unwilling to divulge too much. Vance chuckled, a low, rumbling sound. "Possibilities? Dr. Thorne, we're talking about potentially rewriting the very definition of human life. A market far beyond anything we've ever encountered." He gestured to a sleek datapad displaying projections that would make any venture capitalist drool. "Genesis Corp is prepared to invest heavily in your research, to provide you with unparalleled resources, to ensure your discovery reaches its full potential." Aris felt a prickle of unease. This wasn't a casual invitation, it was a veiled ultimatum. He knew Genesis Corp's reputation, they weren't known for their philanthropy. "And in return?" Aris asked, his voice steady despite the knot tightening in his stomach. Vance leaned forward, his smile widening, revealing teeth that seemed just a tad too sharp. "In return, Dr. Thorne, we simply ask for collaboration. shared intellectual property. And of course, the assurance that your revolutionary findings will benefit humanity under our guidance. Aris felt a wave of nausea. He'd glanced at the contract earlier, a seemingly innocuous document laced with cleverly worded clauses that granted Genesis Corp almost complete control over any future applications of the Chimera sequence, effectively stifling his own research and independent development. It was a gilded cage, deceptively beautiful, but utterly confining. "I'm afraid," Aris said, his voice cold, "that my vision for this discovery doesn't align with corporate interests." Vance's smile vanished, replaced by a chilling mask of displeasure. "Dr. Thorne," he said, his voice dropping to a dangerously low register, "Genesis Corp doesn't respond well to defiance." The subtle threat hung heavy in the air, unspoken, but palpable. Aris stood up, his chair scraping against the polished floor, a small act of rebellion in a room brimming with corporate power. "I believe in the power of independent research, in the unfettered pursuit of knowledge. I will not surrender the future of humanity to a corporation driven by profit." He turned and walked away, the sleek mahogany table and the chilling smile of Theron Vance fading behind him. He knew he'd just crossed a line, but the thrill of rebellion, the fight for scientific integrity, was far more exhilarating than fear. The shadow of the serpent was long, but he wouldn't be its prey. Chapter 3: Run for Your Life. The crimson emergency lights pulsed, casting long, dancing shadows across the sterile corridors of New Eden. Aris sprinted, his heart hammering a frantic rhythm against his ribs, the metallic clang of his boots echoing through the deserted hallways. Behind him, he could hear the heavy thud of footsteps, the relentless pursuit of Genesis Corp's security forces. He'd underestimated them. The corporation hadn't merely sent security guards, they'd deployed bioengineered Cerberus dogs, genetically modified canines with enhanced senses, speed, and aggression. Their growls, amplified by the echoing corridors, sent shivers down his spine. He risked a glance over his shoulder. One of the Cerberus dogs, its eyes glowing with an unnatural luminescence, was gaining on him. Its jaws snapped shut just inches from his heel as he veered sharply into a maintenance tunnel, the air thick with the smell of ozone and rust. "Damn it," he muttered, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He fumbled with his datapad, frantically searching for an alternative route. The corporation's surveillance system, a pervasive network of biosensors and cameras, made escape incredibly difficult. They were tracking his genetic markers, making him a beacon in their technological web. He ducked into a darkened service shaft, the air thick with dust and the metallic tang of blood, a grim reminder of the dangers he faced. His hand brushed against something cold and metallic, a discarded pipe wrench. He grabbed it, his knuckles white. It wouldn't be enough against the Cerberus dogs, but it might buy him some time. He heard the dogs sniffing at the entrance to the shaft, their low growls vibrating through the metal. He held his breath, the silence broken only by the pounding of his own heart. Then, a faint humming sound reached his ears, the ventilation system. He knew the infrastructure of New Eden like the back of his hand, a risky but potentially effective escape route. He crawled through the narrow duct, the stale air choking him. Sparks flew as his wrench scraped against the metal walls. The air grew thinner, hotter. He could hear the scraping of claws against the metal above him. The dogs had found another way in. He reached a junction, forcing himself to choose a path. He opted for the north ventilation shaft leading towards the less secure perimeter of the biodome. It was a long shot, a desperate gamble, but it was his only chance. He emerged into a darkened maintenance area, panting, his clothes torn, his body aching. The Cerberus dogs were still pursuing him, but their pursuit was slower in the open area. His heart still pounding, Aris knew this was only a temporary reprieve. He had lost valuable time, and more importantly, a crucial data file containing the algorithm for activating the Chimera sequence. He still had a lot to lose. The chase was far from over. Chapter 4: The Martian Underground. The flickering candlelight cast long, dancing shadows on the rough-hewn walls of the hidden laboratory. It was nestled deep within New Eden's underbelly, a secret sanctuary for independent researchers, a refuge from the stifling grip of Genesis Corporation. Aris, bruised and exhausted, leaned against a workbench, the rough wood a welcome contrast to the sterile surfaces of Genesis Corp's facilities. Dr. Lena Reyes, a biochemist with eyes that held the fierce intensity of a hawk, studied him with concern. "You look like you wrestled a Cerberus dog and lost," she said, a wry smile playing on her lips. "They're faster than they look," Aris rasped, his voice hoarse. "And their sense of smell, it's unnerving." Another figure emerged from the shadows, Dr. Jen Lee, a wiry computer scientist with nimble fingers and an uncanny ability to infiltrate any system. "The corporation surveillance is more sophisticated than we initially thought," Jen said, his voice low and serious. "They're using advanced genetic tracking." "You're practically glowing to them." Aris nodded grimly. "I lost a crucial data file, the activation algorithm for the chimera sequence." A hush fell over the room. The algorithm was the key, the missing piece that would unlock the true potential of his discovery. Losing it was a devastating blow. Suddenly, a voice, low and gravelly, cut through the tension. Perhaps not entirely lost. A woman emerged from the darkness. Her name was Dr. Anya Sharma, a former Genesis Corp scientist, her face etched with a mixture of weariness and defiance. Aris recognized her from the anonymous warning. "I leaked the alert to you," Anya explained, her gaze unwavering. "I couldn't stand idly by while they misused the chimera sequence. Their intentions are far more sinister than simple profit. They intend to create a genetically superior workforce, a compliant, expendable army of enhanced humans." Anya revealed that Genesis Corp planned to weaponize the chimera sequence, creating soldiers with extended lifespans and enhanced abilities, reinforcing Aris's suspicions about their motives. A wave of grim determination washed over the group. The stakes had just risen exponentially. This wasn't just about a scientific breakthrough anymore, it was about preventing a dystopian future where humanity became enslaved by its own creations. They had to reclaim the algorithm, expose Genesis Corp's plans, and ensure the ethical development of the chimera sequence. The Martian underground had just become the front line of a silent war for the future of humanity. The fight had just begun. Chapter 5: The Data Heist. The server farm hummed, a colossal hive of blinking lights and whirring hard drives. Aris, Lena, Jen, and Anya stood poised at the edge of the restricted zone, shadows in the artificial twilight of New Eden's underbelly. Their target, a heavily fortified Genesis Corp server farm, the digital fortress guarding the missing algorithm. Jen, a maestro of digital infiltration, tapped furiously on his customized datapad. "I found a weakness," he whispered, his voice barely audible above the hum of the servers. "Genesis Corp over-relies on AI security. I've identified a predictable pattern in their predictive algorithms. It's a loophole in their perfect system." Lena, ever practical, checked their equipment, biomimetic suits designed to mask their biosignatures, sophisticated hacking tools, and a suite of countermeasures to disable the security systems. "We have a 10-minute window," she said, her voice sharp and focused. "Any longer, and the entire system will go into lockdown." Aris, his earlier exhaustion replaced by a surge of adrenaline, felt a familiar thrill. This wasn't just a data retrieval, it was a high-stakes game of cat and mouse, a battle of wits against a technologically superior opponent. He had to succeed. They moved with the precision of a well-oiled machine. Jen expertly navigated the labyrinthine digital pathways, bypassing firewalls and security protocols with surgical precision. Lena deployed countermeasures, neutralizing the AI safeguards as Jen exploited the predictable patterns in their system. Anya provided tactical support, monitoring for any anomalies or intrusions. Suddenly, alarms blared. Red lights flashed, bathing the server room in an ominous glow. A robotic security drone, its metallic limbs whirring menacingly, materialized from the shadows. "They're onto us!" Lena exclaimed, her voice tight with urgency. Aris, reacting instinctively, used a specialized EMP device to temporarily disable the drone, buying them precious seconds. The air crackled with the tension of the confrontation, the rhythmic whirring of the servers a constant reminder of the ticking clock. With seconds to spare, Jen reached the crucial file. He downloaded it, a surge of triumph coursing through him. They retreated, their hearts pounding, leaving behind a trail of disabled security systems and a deactivated drone. They had won this battle, but the war was far from over. The algorithm was theirs, but Genesis Corp wouldn't give up easily. The race to expose them and secure the Chimera sequence for humanity had just entered a critical phase. Chapter 6: Public Revelation and Corporate Retaliation. The holographic projector shimmered, casting Aris's image across the vast expanse of New Eden Central Plaza. Thousands of faces, a sea of anxious eyes, watched him. He stood tall, his voice amplified across the plaza, his words cutting through the nervous anticipation. For too long, Genesis Corp has held a stranglehold on New Eden, suppressing innovation, controlling resources, and manipulating the very fabric of our society, he declared, his voice resonating with righteous anger. They have tried to silence me, to steal my research, to weaponize the Chimera sequence for their own nefarious ends. He unveiled the data, revealing Genesis Corp's plan to create a genetically modified army, their unethical experiments, and their suppression of independent research. The crowd reacted with gasps of shock, murmurs of outrage, and angry shouts. The carefully crafted facade of Genesis Corp's benevolence had shattered. The revelation sparked immediate outrage. Protests erupted across New Eden, the simmering discontent against Genesis Corp boiling over into open rebellion. Aris, Lena, Jen, and Anya, working from their hidden lab, monitored the unfolding events, a mixture of relief and apprehension in their eyes. But Genesis Corp wouldn't surrender without a fight. They unleashed a sophisticated disinformation campaign, flooding the comms channels with fabricated reports, discrediting Aris and his team, portraying them as reckless extremists threatening the stability of New Eden. The media became a battleground, a war of narratives. Simultaneously, Genesis Corp launched a retaliatory strike. Their security forces, enhanced by the very technology Aris had sought to prevent them from weaponizing, stormed their hidden lab. The battle was fierce. Lena's expertise in bioweapons came into play, creating diversions and disabling the corporate security forces. Jen, hacking into Genesis Corp systems, disrupted their surveillance and communication networks, turning their own technology against them. Anya, drawing upon her insider knowledge, guided them through the labyrinthine corridors of New Eden. Aris, meanwhile, focused on activating the Chimera sequence, a race against time. He succeeded, initiating the process, a surge of power and hope coursing through him. But the price was high. The lab was overrun, the battle raging around him. The chapter ends on a cliffhanger. Aris and his team stand amidst the wreckage of their lab, victorious in their scientific achievement, but surrounded by the overwhelming force of Genesis Corp, their lives hanging precariously in the balance. The fight for the future of humanity had reached a critical juncture. The outcome remained uncertain. Chapter 7: The Human Spark. Aris lay wounded, but alive, amidst the wreckage of his lab. Lena tended to his injuries, her movements precise and efficient. Jen, despite the chaos, was already working on restoring their communication systems, while Anya, ever vigilant, scanned the surroundings, searching for any remaining Genesis Corp operatives. The battle had been brutal, a testament to the lengths to which Genesis Corp would go to maintain control. But despite their losses, they had achieved something remarkable. They had activated the Chimera sequence. The news of Aris's public revelation and the ensuing battle had ignited a firestorm of public outrage. The carefully crafted image of Genesis Corp as benevolent benefactors had been shattered, replaced by the stark reality of their corporate greed and unethical ambitions. Genesis Corp's disinformation campaign backfired spectacularly. The public, fueled by Aris's evidence and the raw emotion of the conflict, turned against the corporation. Independent media outlets, empowered by the widespread access to information, exposed Genesis Corp's lies and misdeeds, amplifying the people's anger. The regulatory bodies, overwhelmed by the public outcry and the mounting evidence of Genesis Corp's illegal activities, initiated an investigation. The corporation, facing a mountain of incriminating evidence and a public demanding accountability, was forced to retreat. Aris, recovering in a makeshift medical bay, watched the unfolding events unfold with a mixture of relief and cautious optimism. His fight hadn't been merely a struggle against a powerful corporation, it had been a testament to the resilience and ingenuity of the human spirit. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. The ethical implications of the Chimera sequence were immense, requiring careful consideration and responsible oversight. But he also knew that humanity, even fractured and struggling, possessed the capacity for extraordinary collaboration and self-determination. In the end, it wasn't advanced technology or superior firepower that had won the day. It was the human spark, the unwavering determination, the collective will, the unwavering belief in a better future, that had triumphed over corporate greed and the attempts to control human evolution. The story concludes with Aris and his team establishing a collaborative research center dedicated to the ethical development and responsible application of the Chimera sequence. They were no longer fighting a desperate battle for survival, but forging a new path, ensuring that the future of humanity would be shaped by the collective will of the people, not by the profit motives of a single corporation. The human spirit, it seemed, had once again proven its capacity for triumph over adversity. The legacy of the glitch in the singularity was a new era of scientific progress, fueled by collaboration and guided by ethical responsibility.